Make sure you check out our online store where we work with our graphic designer to create stunning garment and product designs that feature a wide variety of aircraft types such as British fighters, World War II aircraft, American bombers, Russian fighters and much more. You can pick your favourite designs and personalise any items within our Redbubble store that range from clothing right the way through to stationery. All of our designs feature our logo so you can show your support for the channel while getting a quality product. You can head to our website aircrewinterview.tv and click store, or go to redbubble.com/people/AC interview. Thank you and enjoy. How long would it take to train, well, I guess, a pilot and a nav, and was the pilot more and the nav less, for instance?
No, they basically trained in a parallel system, and they flew together. Eventually, when they were able to, and and they progressed together on the squadron, and much the same length of time, I guess. We spent about the same time with ground school. One of the earlier problems with the ground school was getting suitable training aids, because the RAF had plenty of training aids, and there weren't too many of the Saudis. And I mean, even our lecture program benefited from having some of the RAF slides, which we could use. And the simulator flying, again, similar length.
Yeah. So did the Saudis basically model everything off the RAF? Because did they not want their own inputs and views in there, or did they just say the RAF can do this, we'll just go with what they say?
I think one of the reasons why we've been successful with the Al Yamama project has probably been because when they buy the aircraft, they also buy the RAF training.
Also comes as a package.
And I think they like the RAF training system.
Mm-hmm.
I know, having worked with the American Air Force, that we have our attributes in our training system that are not in theirs. But then theirs is a system that trains large numbers of people, and with the old story, you know, quantity has a quality all of its own.
Exactly, yeah.
We tend to concentrate on quality, whereas the Americans were tending more towards the quantity side.
So what kind of fits would you be flying? Would you be clean? Would you have tanks on?
The same fits as UK, basically. If we were doing a lot of air combat training, then generally you'd take the tanks off for that. Otherwise you leave the tanks on.
So how did you find the terrain? Was it just flat or was there mountains?
It was very uninteresting, actually.
I was going to say, yeah, compared to Europe anyway.
Yeah, mostly desert, and I mean, difficult to get lost with you know, a twin IN system and all the other things you've got going for you. But yeah, fairly featureless.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I mean, I was quite interested in the topography and quite interested in some of the little settlements. You think of most of our flying training was in the empty quarter, what they call the empty quarter, which
mm-hmm.
is south of Dhahran. And you look at it by day and think, you know, there's quite a hostile desert there with you think probably nobody living there. And then you go out at night and do some night flying and you see lights all over the place. And you think, you know, where were they in the daytime?
Yeah, so was night flying a big thing over there? Was it?
I think it was viewed much the same as it is in UK, you know, something best avoided.
Yeah.
But then there was no bar to go to in the evening, so you might as well go night flying.
Exactly, yeah. So how long did you spend in Saudi?
10 years altogether. And
did you enjoy it?
By and large, yes. I mean, we were lucky we had a 2-day weekend. Not everybody had a 2-day weekend. And we took up sailing when we went there. It was a hard life, really, for the wives, because they couldn't drive, they couldn't work, and you think, well, what have they got to do? You know, just hanging around the compound all day. But my wife got heavily involved into animal rescue, and she helped to run an animal rescue society there. We spent a lot of time raising funds. There were a huge number of stray cats, and the huge feral colonies, and of course they reproduce very rapidly.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of time in the afternoons after work. I was often commandeered by my wife to drive her down to the seafront and walk along the beach and trap cats. And we'd trap them and take them to the vets, get them spayed and neutered,
yeah.
and then release them back again.
Mm-hmm.
And the Saudis must have thought we were absolute bonkers. Apart from that, we got heavily involved in sailing, and we had our own Hobie cat in the end, and we totally enjoyed the 2 days on the beach. And of course it was a wonderful place to sail, a much safer environment to learn in. A little bit hot in the summer, but you know, in 48 centigrade and 95% humidity, it feels a little bit warm. But we've managed to cope. You know, we take about 12 litres of water to the beach and come back on empty. But the animal rescue kept my wife busy, raising funds for the program we were doing with the vets. At one stage, our kitchen became the veterinary surgery at weekends. Yes, the veterinary treatment was very difficult to obtain, and we found a vet in Jeddah who would fly into Dhahran at weekends and operate in our kitchen. But my wife did scrub the surfaces down afterwards.
So, Gotta say, yeah.
But the waiting room was our lounge, and we had quite a moving population.
New business, maybe?
Well, it could have been. Well, it was probably a good business for the vet,
yeah.
But we didn't get anything out of it.
Yeah. So to wrap up, can you share maybe a memorable story from your time on the F3 in Saudi Arabia?
Yes, and it's a cultural story, really. I sat in the crew room one day with talking to this young lieutenant or two young lieutenants, and they were very fond of talking about religion and the differences between their religion and ours, and they used to ask quite a lot of questions about our religion.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And generally, you know, I would ask some questions about theirs too, and one of them said to me one day, he said, "Mr. Paddy," he said, how can it be that the son of your God turned water into wine?" And I had to bite my tongue a bit, because I was tempted to say, "Well, come down to the compound and I'll show you." But that was an interesting encounter. But you just had to be a little bit careful how you replied.
Yeah, of course. So how many hours did you get in the Tornado F3 in total and in Saudi itself?
Gosh, I don't know offhand. I should think probably less than 2,000. But I can't remember how many in total.
You just stopped counting after a while.
Well, no, I mean, yeah.
Did you ever fly the Tornado F3 against the F-14, F-16 or F-18? If so, how did it fare?
I certainly flew it against the F-14 and against the F-16. And as long as you didn't mix it with the F-16 up close, it performed quite well. Dealing with two crew against a single crew aircraft is always going to give you a bit of an advantage, particularly in a busy scenario or at night or in bad weather. But the F-16 at the beginning didn't have such a good radar as we had, and that really helped, although the RAF radar improved enormously over the years. Against the F-14, the biggest problem we had really was the fact that it could go fast like us. But otherwise, it was not a difficult aircraft to fight.
Do you remember if it was the A, B or D, the F-14?
Gosh, no, that's too far back, I'm afraid.
Do you ever get in, because my favourite thing to do is find an F3 formating with an F-14. Did you actually get up close and, you know, or was it once the flight was off, you just leave?
I've been up close, but obviously, you know, no pictures. I mean, you have to talk to Ian Black about pictures.
He doesn't have one either.
Doesn't he? Oh.
It's like a unicorn for me.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Paddy, did you prefer flying the F3 in Saudi Arabia or in Britain? I guess Europe as well.
It's a no-brainer, really. I prefer flying it in Britain, you know, because, you know, the difference in skill levels, the difference in the environment, and so on. But it was interesting in Saudi. But when I came to the end of my 3 years in the cockpit in Saudi, I was about ready to hang my hat up, I think, and move to the simulator.
Mm-hmm. And did you actually ever get any Saudi pilots and navs join the squadron in the RAF?
No, it was one of my regrets that they didn't do Squadron Exchanges with the RAF, because that would have been an ideal opportunity to break down some of the cultural barriers. And I don't know why it didn't happen, but the fact there were no exchanges, I think, was a bit of a shame. I
wonder if that was lack on both parts or more the RAF.
I wouldn't have thought the RAF would have much say in it, to be quite frank, because the Al Yamama project is slightly bigger than the RAF. And yes, the RAF could have rejected it, but I don't think they would have done. I think they might have been quite pleased to be able to help with the Al Yamama contract.
And did you actually stay in contact with any of the people you flew with?
No, sadly. I did for a couple of years with one particular chap. In fact, this particular chap wanted to fly my last sortie.
Okay.
Because he knew that it was my last ever sortie in a fighter. Yeah, I stayed in contact with him for a bit, but then lost contact.
As our viewers will be able to see, you've got a Tornado F3 model and a helmet there. Can you just share a bit about the background of them?
Yes, the Tornado F3 model is fairly obvious, actually, much the same as the RAF F3, but different markings on it.
Was it a gift, or did you buy it? Or?
That was a gift, I think, probably from the company. Gifts from the Saudis were interesting because the company tended to give the gifts to the Saudis, and the Saudis then tended to give the gift. It's very much a sponsorship deal. The helmet, that's an interesting helmet. That's done some flying in both the Tornado and in the Spitfire and in the Hurricane.
Oh wow!
So been in my possession for a number of years.
Surprised they did take it home, or did they just give you it?
I can't remember how I came by it. It was last used in the RAF simulator because I finished my career teaching in the RAF simulator.
And one final question, this is from me. Favourite aircraft you've actually flown in your career?
Oh, without a shadow of doubt, the Phantom.
Yeah,
I mean, the Lightning was the performance ship. The Lightning was the sports car. But to do the business, the Phantom was the business aircraft, and it really did the business in many roles very successfully.
And I've asked this before to Phantom pilots. Why do you think that Phantom had that X factor compared to the F3? Even people who flew it, they always go Phantom straight away. I've never heard anyone say F3 yet if they've flown both.
I think the capability and this is where the Tornado F3 really lost out. You can start with a very successful fighter that's been procured as a fighter, and you can then convert it to do all sorts of other things like bombing and reconnaissance and so on. And that was the case with the Phantom. With the Tornado, it was the other way around. It was procured basically as a bomber, particularly a low-level bomber, and trying to turn that into a multi-role aircraft is a little bit tricky, to say the least. And obviously the engines are going to be optimized for low-level, not high-level. The aircraft is going to suffer some manoeuvrability problems, despite the swing wings. The Tornado F3 was a fair compromise as a long-range interceptor, but was never going to be a real, fighter. The knife fight in the phone box was definitely not for the Tornado. Was
it a stopgap to the Typhoon, do you think?
Not as such, I don't believe. I think we were looking for a fighter, and I think it was obviously described at the beginning of the procurement stage as a multi-role combat aircraft, the MRCA, but it was never really a very successful multi-role combat aircraft. It was very good for the low-level penetration role and as a bomber, but never very good for air defence, really.
Well, Paddy, thanks very much for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure.